morning. Welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 22nd day of April 2024. And welcome to our show today. We had a beautiful weekend here in Michigan. There's as always, there's just like a lot going on. And I wanted to let everybody know that I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break here from this week Tuesday to next week Tuesday. So don't panic if I'm not here. I'll try to do some intermittent type of broadcast. But I am going to be at the presidential nominating convention out in Utah, so I will be moving around a little bit. And so I'll be back next week, Wednesday. Now, I might do some broadcast while I'm there. That's the goal is for me to do some while I'm on the road. So I'll be like kind of on the ground reporting there. So just want to let you know, don't worry about it. I'm fine, and we'll be back next week. So with that said, I'm going to bring on my guest today. We've got Jeff, Jason, and Whistling Mama Bear. How you guys doing?
Great.
Doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Morning.
We're doing good. Doing really good. So what's happening today? It sounds like Palm Beach County is a mess.
Yeah, well, so many others. Like so many others. We're we're fighting the fight down here. You know, I ran for Congress last cycle, and a lot of issues arose that really prompted me to move districts. I was first running in Palm Beach County in district was Lois Frankel's the incumbent, and Palm Beach County was I couldn't get answers. The supervisor of elections, she basically double talked me on everything. So I decided to move to a different district, the next district north, which encompasses about 1/3 of Palm Beach County, all of Martin County, and all of St. Lucie County. So I thought that I would have a flavor of three different supervisor of elections, three different jurisdictions, and mitigate the risk. And so now I have a lot of inside information, not just on Wendy Satori Link, but also the other two voting jurisdictions, Martin County and St. Lucie County.
You know, what's really amazing is when you get into a run for an office, you really get an eye opener of how these people are connected and how they work together to subvert the will of the people. They're not working for us. They're trying to shut us up, censor us. That's why we're all here today anyway, because, you know, we believe in free speech and giving everybody a voice. And when there are people who are whistleblowers, who are willing to come forward and say something, we have to listen to people and investigate it. And every single one of the clerks that are out there, I just had this discussion this morning with somebody in Michigan, and how they literally are so focused on their jobs that they are not investigating and looking at the bigger picture. Some of them are part of the cover-up. There's no two ways about it. But some of them are also, you know, a little bit myopic on the way things are being run. And they need to get in the game here and come forward and expose what's happening on. It's amazing. So, and then it's not just the clerks, it's everybody downstream, upstream from this. People need to blow the whistle on things and come forward. So where do you want to go from here? I've got a video from you, Jeff, that I can put up.
Yeah, why don't we start that? That ties directly into the topics that our whistling blowing mama is going to cover.
Okay, hang on a minute. We'll go ahead and play this right now.
Ballot votes.
Yes, it's a law. It's on the books. It's 98.0981 2A. It's a third-degree misdemeanor, and I called the sheriff's office, and the sheriff referred me to who? The supervisor of elections. They said, we don't prosecute election law, but there's also a statute for that. It's spaghetti legislation. You have to follow the bouncing ball. Since I went to the Mike Lindell Symposium and I met Amanda Chase and some great people, Wendy Rogers, Mark Fincham, it's been my mission to fix the elections. That's the first. All of these problems, like Bannon says, stolen elections. Stephen K. Stolen elections are devastating.
It's the comment on the sheriff
in our country every day.
So play the string out on that spaghetti. I'm mixing metaphors, I guess. But the sheriff says, I can't really deal with the law here, so call the Board of Elections. So what does the Board of Elections tell you?
Well, it's like calling the person of interest in a crime for justice. We need justice. Right now, it's justice for just us, not them. Justice for just us.
So tell us about
Like
the
that.
issues animating your campaign. I want to hear about gas prices. I want to hear about people talking about inflation. You're out there with
That's
the
good,
voters.
Donna. I just wanted to get that sheriff stuff out.
Okay, so we did some polling.
What's that?
Yeah, no, that's it. I just wanted to get the comment on my experience with the sheriff, and how we have weakened the election laws in many states in lockstep. And I'm reading now from Peter Berenger that there's the state legislative caucus that's funded by the CCP, and on the national level, in my opinion, they federalized the elections by passing pretty much laws in lockstep that are similar across every state. This law
Even the
does
language is
service.
identical. The language, it's all identical.
Yeah. This is a RICO conspiracy at the highest level.
And pretty amazing. So what are you seeing there, Whistling Mama Bear?
I brought
Hi, Aaron.
my American flag, not because I surrender, but because I stand for this country and everything that we bring to the world. And being today is Earth Day, what they call Earth Day, I call it Earth Day every day, which is why I just decided it was time for me to step up to the plate. I actually saw that video and contacted Jeff back in 2022. And I'm not sure if he remembers that, but that was when I decided that I was going to take my first stab at some of this truth and see if, what was real and what was fiction. So luckily I had a little group of patriots who invited me with them. And we went to the tabulation center. And when we were there, that's basically where my story begins, is that our eyes were open immediately. We walked into that building, and the supervisor, it was obvious that she didn't want us there, which meant that we had to stay. So every day we were there. We walked in with a smile on our face, and we were just so happy that we had the freedom to do this, because we knew in other countries that they don't have that same freedom. So even though we were not welcomed, we didn't expect to be welcomed, but we just kept being persistent. And I think 2.5 years later, we have some experiences that I think no one else can match. And we're just ready to share it with everyone. We've tried to reach out here and there along the last few years. We had some success with some election integrity groups that kind of took some of our work and tried to make it more effective. But unfortunately, as Jeff said, we're up against more than just the law. We're up against the law times 100. And they're not standing for our rights. They're actually, what we found, are hired by the supervisor, and they do details. So when you're at the tabulation center, they're not really there to protect you.
You're talking about the sheriffs, right?
Yes. So we were very surprised at some of those things, because we thought they were there to witness some of the fraud that we saw. And when we actually told them, they didn't want to hear it. And they told us many times, that to just shut our phones off, and we weren't allowed to take videos. We weren't allowed to see anything. And of course we resisted and pushed back on all of that, which is how we got some of the most of the footage we have is all because we had to force our rights, because they were just, any chance they had, they were taking whatever bogus information the supervisor was telling them, they were just regurgitating to us, because what we found was most of the sheriffs were really not familiar with the law. They didn't know what the election statutes were that we were operating under, and a lot of the staff didn't know as well. And we think that was part of the setup, was to not have anybody really informed. So when we would go in, we would have to spend most of our time informing people or trying to fix our reputation, because a lot of times we found that the sheriffs and the staff already had a negative outcome when it came to election integrity volunteers. And we had so many, and most of them were elderly, of course, because as Wendy told me, you know, some people, as you said, Donna, some people have a lot of time on their hands. And that was her reasoning for kind of disparaging us for being there, because we had been there so often. I think we put in 1,600 hours. So,
yeah, they like to try to intimidate you when you go there, and it's a pattern, and it's unfortunate. But when they do try to intimidate you, you got to pretty much tell them what it's gonna be, because that's not okay for public functionaries. There's a lot of threat, intimidation, coercion going on. People are being threatened every single day in this nation for coming forward and telling the truth, and it's a shame.
well, I wanted to cover my face today, honestly, but I decided not to because
thank you so much for doing this.
Because of you guys, I watched a few of your shows.
Thank you so much for doing this. You know, one of the things that I noticed, and I have a screen up, and this law that's on the books. If I'm not sure, are you sharing yet? Can you put up my screen presentation?
I'm getting there. Hang on a minute there, Jeff. Hold on.
Yeah.
There we go. Yep.
So we went to, I gathered a lot of petitions, and I went to Tallahassee with a couple of guys, Ralph and Chuck. They were a TV personality on Real America's Voice. You know, this is before that.
You're breaking up there, Jeff.
But we went up there. We went to the governor's conference room. Not working for us at all. When I say they, I mean the government. But what I noticed was this law that I mentioned in the video. They changed the verbiage, and I don't know if it was voted on, but here it says fewer than 30 votes, and in another publication of the law and on the supervisor's website, it says 1 to 29. And what this means is they don't give us detail on the vote types, the ballot groups, and the votes that are obfuscated. And if you look down here, it says between 1 and 29, and on the state statute it says between 0 and between 0 and fewer than 30. It's worded different, and it makes a difference, because if there's 0 votes, that would force them to reveal more information. If it's 1 to 29, it's a more it's a range that works in their favor. And it's just odd how that was stricken or changed. But I just want to give everyone an example. This is reported properly, right? You see how they have total votes? This is the aggregate number on the right, 656 on the top line. And it shows there's 443 early mail votes. There's 99 election day votes and 114. So, I mean, these numbers just jump off the screen. People are kind of embracing this early vote, but, I think more so it's nefarious. But the biggest abuser, right, which this is very interesting. This is going into COVID. And, this is the 2020 election. And this is the sheriff. And if you notice, these precincts, there's no detail. So they're hiding this from the people. Over 1/3 of his votes were registered without any kind of detail. So he's the biggest abuser of the problem. And it turns out that there's all these connections between the sheriff and a consulting company. This is a third party, another player. It's called Cornerstone Solutions, and it's run by a guy named Rick Asnani. And he plays both sides of the fence. Here's the kicker. He's a contractor for the supervisor of elections. He gets paid by the Palm Beach County taxpayer funds. And he's also the campaign manager for the sheriff, and he's also the campaign manager for the supervisor of elections. So, we have this good old boys network that's connected and, working not for the people, working against the people. We have a supervisor of elections who's not transparent whatsoever. She's been known to be very I'm going to say sneaky in how she operates. And then we have a sheriff who will prosecute election crimes and refers us back to the prime suspect. And with that, you could stop the screen share. And I think maybe, Aaron, you might want to get into some of the details of how they came to your house and harassed you and, kind of baked up some charges for trespassing and, all this craziness. And it's all in an effort intimidate us, to shut us up. And Donna, when I tell the people, we've done everything. We've gone to county meetings. We've done everything possible. It's to the point, and this is just a saying. It's not my saying. It's bullets or ballots, right? It's getting to the point. It's getting to a boiling point. Action needs to be taken. The governor did nothing. The secretary of the state at the time. This is another connected dots, oh my God moment, was Laurel Lee. Now, Laurel Lee ran for Congress up in northern Florida in a very red district, and she won. And when I did my investigation on the Mesa County forensic image, I brought this to some people in Congress, and they said, "Oh, that's great. You need to bring that to Brian Stile, and he's the head of he's the chair of the committee, but there's a subcommittee, and Laurel Lee, she deals with infrastructure." So it would go in front of Laurel Lee, who was the same Secretary of State, who didn't take any action on the 2020 election. She got a promotion, she got selected, and now I'm supposed to bring this same information that we worked hundreds of hours on, spent thousands of dollars, showing that there's breaches that, whether it's Dominion ES&S or any other software, the platform, I'm not blaming anyone, the platform that they use is old, outdated, and these bugs are actually features, in my opinion, to help the bad actors along. So we have the next.
It was Cornerstone. You said Cornerstone, and who? Give me the context of that again. Cornerstone. And who was the guy?
Yeah, his name is Rick Asnani, Asnani, and I'll get some slides up while Erin goes through her. Okay. How they bullied her, how the Palm Beach sheriff, the same people who are supposed to serve the people, is basically a hired gun. And I say that with all seriousness. The sheriff is a hired gun for the Palm Beach County supervisor of elections.
Well, what happened? What happened, Aaron?
Oh,
so gosh. Asnani has a consulting company.
Go ahead, Aaron.
All right. Well,
sorry, you broke up there for a second. I heard what happened, and I didn't get the rest of it.
There's a pause between your connection and ours, and so so it's okay. You can stay on, but there's a visual or auditory pause. So go ahead,
can you
Aaron.
Stop sharing.
Oh yes, she did.
Can you kill the presentation?
Oh,
yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Well, basically, Jeff, with the statue he put up, is part of what I focus on. My focus is on following the votes. Basically, I'm a vote watcher. That's what I call myself. At not just the etheric votes, but the physical ballots, the physical paper, the physical envelopes, those types of materials, or election materials, we use a statute, and it's called 101.572, which opens us up to be able to do something called public inspection. Now we become a designee for a candidate, a PAC, or a party, and we are then able to request particular materials that we can evaluate. So what we were doing in 2022 is we were requesting the vote by mail envelopes. I don't know if anybody realizes, but we really have 3 elections. We have a vote by mail election, we have an early voting election, and then we have election day. And they're all 3 very different. So I basically focus on the vote by mail elections and the USPS, how they come into the tabulation center, when they come in, the quantities in the day, and what has happened with those. Were they rejected in the canvassing boardroom? Were they accepted? Was the signature, what happened? Was it duplicated? How many were duplicated? For what reason? We'll also look at the tabulation, and we'll monitor the paper. Was it folded? What color was it? Was it yellow? Was it gray? Was it white? Many different things that you cannot start picking up after so many hours of watching their process. So with that, we were obviously, the portion of time that we were allotted was about 30 minutes, 3 times a week. So, which is very limit. It was only an hour and a half that we were allowed to really see hands-on the materials and compare those. Otherwise, we were mostly just floating within the facility and just kind of creating our own niche of what we wanted to watch that day. If we wanted to watch the opening of the ballot, of the envelopes, if we wanted to participate in the canvassing boardroom, because what we started to realize is that even though it's 20% that vote that actually turn out, which is absurd to me, ridiculous, that they can even say that that's even a qualified vote. I think that if someone's determining a mayor at 10-15%, I mean, I don't even think that should be a real election. But so when they get these ballots, so this last election, March 19th, in Palm Beach County, we also have municipals along with it. So what was happening last year is the REC was pushing something. The Republican Executive Committee is what the REC in Palm Beach is. I do not belong to that, but I am a Republican. They were pushing this strange idea to have everybody order a vote by mail. Even if you don't want to vote it, you're going to just order it, and you're going to keep it on your kitchen table. And when you go to vote, you're going to surrender it. And either when you go to vote early voting or election day. But what I noticed is that people were not surrendering their ballot. And most of the people who did this were kind of not really clear why they did it. So they didn't understand that they had to surrender their vote by mail ballot. But when they would go to vote, nobody would say to them, wait, hold on, don't you have a vote by mail ballot at home? So they were allowed to just vote. And so when we posed the question, of course, we were told that, well, of course, the machine will know if you voted, and they won't let your vote by mail be counted. If it were to come in, let's say you go home after early voting, and the supervisor in Palm Beach likes to blame elderly people and their memory loss for most of the mistakes that she makes. That's what I said. She's very sloppy. So Jeff was being nice, but I think she's just very sloppy.
Or intentional.
Yeah, she's not committed to the job because she's not really doing the job. She's just a cover, like a henchman or something she's a spokesperson. And I finally realized that after, asking her questions that she didn't have even the answer to. She had no clue. And she would just give us regurgitated, mainstream answers that we were not happy with. So over time, that it gave her empowerment to then go to the legislation in November and request a statute that would be putting any vote watcher or any poll watcher was not included in her statute, which was to protect election workers and protect election employees from harassment. Now, the funny part is that we had been there there was no harassment that we saw of any of her employees whatsoever. We were actually, the people I saw going in there were overly kind to the staff and overly appreciative of everything that they were doing. There was a select few staff that were her main workers that were definitely not in that same category, but that was that's another subject. But
yeah, Erin, that bill that Mike Caruso helped sponsor, that's really important, and this ties back to how he knows about. He's definitely aware of the ballot harvesting scheme and the illegals. But what I'd really like for you to expand on is in detail on the presidential primary race when you were doing your work. What they did to you, how they intimidated you, how they pressed charges, how they came to your house. How the sheriff really flexed his muscles to intimidate you. That's really what I really want to get that. I want to get it out on social. I want to get it out to the people, and this is not America, and this is happening right under Donald Trump's nose in his own county. And he made a very telling comment. He said, "As a citizen, I demand the border be shut." So everything starts at the local. We have huge issues. I really want you to drill down on Sheriff Bradshaw and the brown shirts.
Well, I had to build up to that only because what happened is normally we get our allotted time to do our public inspection, but we were not being given that during this election. It seems though that the year that she had off, she decided to implement some procedures that would actually keep us out of the tabulation center. So she started putting these designated times at her branch offices so that we didn't have any reason to even be at the tabulation center unless there was a schedule on the canvassing board schedule. So as we kept looking day after day after day, now she began collecting ballots on February 5th. Now, mind you, the election is March 19th. So we start paying attention much earlier than anybody else does. So day after day, we were still not getting access to the building. We were not allowed to even go there because we were told when we went there that they were closed and not open to the public. And we said, but you're processing ballots every day. You're processing up to 1,300 ballots a day. And they said, but we're not opening them and we're not canvassing them, so you're not allowed in here. We said, well, this is our building. We're allowed in here. And we kept kind of going and knocking on the door. Well, eventually what happened is we were advised by a sheriff to keep documenting this lack of transparency and this lack of accessibility because we were concerned. There was Donald Trump ballots in there. There was, at this point on February 26th, there was 30,000 ballots in there. Nobody had any idea. There's 30,000 ballots in that building. Vote by mail. They were all vote by mail at this point. There was no early voting yet. So she's a Democrat. So this goes back to what Jeff was saying. Governor DeSantis selected her because we had a problem with our previous supervisor who was removed. Then she oversaw 2 of his elections. She also oversaw her own brother's election in March. So talk about all of this is that. So
nepotism.
So when the sheriff, I called the sheriff myself at one point because we didn't necessarily think to do that. We didn't think that we had to call the sheriff on the sheriff or call the sheriff on So they called the sheriff on us, so we called the sheriff on them. So all of a sudden we have 4 sheriff there. So I had some documentation that I had wanted to present to Wendy because I had seen some of her numbers changing on some of her data that she had been posting, which goes along to, of course, they're transmitting data because how would I know how many ballots she was receiving every day and what party it was if she wasn't transmitting that? And I have every day with those screenshots. So I was trying to present her with some evidence that her numbers were changing, and I wanted to know why and what. So one of the sheriffs took my evidence and he wrote a report. And I believe that what he did, I don't think he knew he wasn't supposed to write a report. So when he wrote the report, it was on them. It was not on us, which she wanted to get us a trespassing charge. So that was what the statute or the bill that she had passed, which was about 4 sentences that she was trying to pass, was about trespassing, and it was going to be a 1st-degree felony. Last year, it was a 3rd-degree felony. So it's better, But so her goal was to at least get a couple things, I think, on me specifically, because as you can see behind me, I mean, this is just a sample of some of the stuff I have, So I think that, the work we've been doing is really good work. It's not just me. It's about 10.
Whole team of you.
We don't connect together in terms of a team because that also is a target on your back. So we just kind of do our own work, and we're Team America, basically. And because we don't want to we can't have a name, we can't have a title, because then they'll label you and then they'll throw your whole group out. So this was a Friday. I went home and I got a phone call from a kind sheriff. So I want to say that not every sheriff is bad. But this one sheriff, he said to me, "You're going to get a visit from some sheriff today." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, well, apparently the supervisor is calling all over, and there's some word in the department that there's some troublemakers, some Republican troublemakers, apparently five of us. I think they're including my son, who's 10, and he was with us. And he said, "You don't have to answer the door. You don't have to answer any questions because you didn't do anything wrong." He said, "You are not trespassing." He said, "I don't agree with what is going on, which is why I'm calling you." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to not answer the door. I'm just going to go out for the afternoon, and I'll be back in a few, So I guess somebody did arrive because my neighbor told me. And then, so I thought that was it, nothing else. And meanwhile, I was pretty shaken up, not to mention just because I have children and I didn't understand, why was this, why? So the next morning, my kids and I walk out to Publix around 3:00, and we see my son goes, "Mom, the sheriff's outside." And I said, "What do you mean?" So I look out the window, and there, sure enough, was a sheriff outside my door, and he was in my pool area. He had gotten out of his vehicle and went in my pool area, in which I live in a complex, and showing my neighbors, or the people in the pool, something on his phone. I'm only assuming it was my picture. And I saw people just shaking their head that they didn't know me, I guess, or they didn't know anything about me. Then he comes and walked back directly to my door, looking at my door. And of course, I was reporting him from my window because I really didn't know what else to do. And I was by myself with my children. He went around my house a couple times, and then he knocked on my door another time. And then I guess after about 20 minutes, he decided to give up. When I did get the police report, which I can't find right now, he wrote in there that he knew it was me because I had an American flag in the window.
So they basically impugned your character because you had an American flag. How terrible of you.
I couldn't believe that was in the police report. It was so, I just realized that I feel bad for these men sort of who were being used to do that to me because I think they just didn't know better.
I don't feel sorry for them at all because there's no excuse for that kind of behavior, and I don't think we should give them 1 inch of mercy for that kind of nonsense because this has gotten so out of hand.
Yeah.
They're all involved in it, and they're working together in order to weaponize everything that they can against us. And it's incredible. Shame on them. Shame on all of them.
Yeah. So let's go over the facts. We have this weakened election law on reporting. We also have allowed to the Superior Court. I think the judge was Mark Walker. We tried. Okay, so if you watch the April 24th video of the Florida state legislation, all of the Democrats in lockstep, they're making their case. It's all orchestrated where we need NGOs. We call them 3PVOs in Florida, third-party voter organizations, and we need to allow non-citizens to register citizens to vote. Now, in my opinion, and if you connect the dots, we talked about the Help America Verify Voters database. We talked about the 200,000 a week in Texas. Now, Florida had a period before the 2020 election, and even during COVID, we managed to have in a 5-week period, I think there were 17,000 of have transactions. So when everything shut down, or our local government shut down, our motor vehicle shut down, our voting, the registrar's office is shut down, where the heck are these registrations coming from? And where are these transactions coming from? And then on top of that, you have a sitting House rep, and I think it's the 94th district of Florida. He's a Republican by name. His name is Mike Caruso. He admitted to me in a text, which I brought up in one of your shows, and I showed it on the screen, that he's aware of a ballot harvesting scheme that I brought to his attention. If you remember, Shane witnessed it in our last interview, Donna, Shane Snavely, where basically the Haitian couple, they threaten you. Well, if you don't pay us $85,000, you're not going to win the primary because we're going to make this deal with Dan Franchese, your competitor, and he's going to win the primary, which is one of the reasons why I left Palm Beach County to run in the next district north. So they're not giving candidates a fair shake. We don't have the data that we need from the election night results. They have laws that are basically just weakening the election. The laws are done, election security. They have laws that are written and passed in lockstep across multiple states. You have this influx of illegal immigrants. You have this high volume of reporting, and this is part of the scheme. It's the 4-digit social security number that's used as identification while you request a vote by mail ballot. And by the way, anyone can request up to 4 vote by mail ballots online. So you're never showing your face. You gotta be kidding me.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. This is on the law. I'm going to put a slide deck together on this. So you can request for 3 of your besties. Okay. So now we have these NGOs running around. We have non-citizens who are allowed, based on the Supreme Court ruling in Florida, that they're allowed to register voters. So we're setting ourselves up for a total shit show coming in the next election. It's going to be stolen. It's going to be stolen at the NGO level. Here's the other thing. The NGOs have 10 days to turn in their voter registration forms. So they go out to abortion clinics and drag queen story hours and all these places where they, and basically the biggest part of the scam, they want to register Democrats, but they're registering illegals. Okay. And that is their bread and butter right now. They're registering illegals, and the NGOs keep these forms for up to 10 days. You can hear in the testimony, I have it on tape, where, but they need 10 days to turn them into the county. Why do they have to hold on to the data for 10 days? What they do, they create their own database. So the NGOs, after they're done registering, they change uniforms and they become ballot harvesters, and they know exactly where to go to get the ballots because they're the ones who sign these people up. Now, whether they mail them to their house or whether they mail it to, these sanctuary buildings where there's 27 people living in a studio apartment, I don't know, but this is a risk. This also, in my opinion, is a violation of the equal protectionism clause of the United States Constitution, the 14th Amendment, where they've abridged the law to favor these illegal immigrants or these people that are, kind of nefarious behind the scenes. They only need to produce a 4-digit ID of a social security number in order to receive 4 mail-in ballots and to cast their mail-in ballot. Whereas, the civic-minded, civic-centric citizen who goes to vote in person, whether it's early or day of, they have to show a photo ID. So we have 2 levels of identity being accepted, and it's a weakened statute. It creates 2 classes of citizens. This nefarious group of citizens that most likely, in my opinion, don't exist or are not entitled to vote. They're not citizens. And then we have the civic-minded citizen who wants to vote in person, who wants to make sure their vote counts. 2 different processes that are separate but unequal. The law is abridged to favor the vote by mail ballot voter or ballot, and also induces ballot harvesting at a mass scale. And then you have the local law that obfuscates the reporting on it, where it only shows an aggregate number, as I displayed earlier. So this is what needs to be addressed before the 2024 election. We're not going to be able to out ballot harvest fraud. You have these NGOs all over the country. They're probably sitting in south of the border in the Darien Gap. They're using the CBP1 app. They're pushing these registrations through to the same people, the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration, the same people that are orchestrating the invasion. They're the ones that are verifying the 4-digit Social Security numbers and sending the data back to the county, to the local jurisdictions, where these people have blindfold trust for the DHS and for Social Security.gov. They're beyond reproach in their opinion because they're brainwashed to accept the data. And now that is the exact scheme that they're going to orchestrate and try to steal the 2024 election. NGOs, 4-digit Social Security numbers, vote by mail with no ID, flip the switch from NGOs from being voter registration organizations to being ballot harvesting organizations, which is illegal in Florida, which Michael Caruso knows about. He's not doing anything. He's not speaking up. In my opinion, it's a lie through omission. And to top things off, his wife, Tracy, who lost the election in Delray Beach for mayor, who he admits she didn't accept the deal from the Haitian community, and she lost. She gets appointed to some health and services, I don't know what job exactly it is, but Governor DeSantis appoints her to this position. So it's all out nepotism. It's all out a scheme, and we have no one to go to. We went to the county. We went to Mike Barnett. We went to the mayor Weiss. They don't want to hear it. They have blind trust and faith in these organizations, in these governmental agencies, and something has to break. This has to get out to the people. You have people like the whistling blowing mama here. You have other people in the county who have done everything in their power legally. And what happens? It's retaliation. And this is not America. And we have to stand up.
This is the amount in the different directions you could even look at with what is wrong with this scenario. And for you to say that we're going to turn into a shit show, we're already there. It is. This whole thing is complete and utter malfeasance, maladministration, and a total breakdown of our election process, which is theft of our nation right there. And just to go back to one of your points there, that the base level on all of this is we can conclusively say that we have a foreign-run election structure, and it is woven through. This isn't a direct attack on the United States of America through foreign actors working on concert with domestic threats. So, and every single one of them that touched this thing should be absolutely tried for treason and treated mercilessly for what they've done to this nation.
Donna, I secured a vote by mail ballot, and I got an email from a company called VR Systems. Okay, so VR Systems is handling the distribution of the mail-in ballots.
Who the
VR
heck are
Systems,
they?
VR Systems is also a technical consulting firm that Florida reports all of their election night results to before it goes to CITL for the public. Now, here's the kicker. I did a search on vrsystems.com and for their DNS, and what I found is that VR Systems is in Russia, they're in Belgrade, they're in all these different countries, and many of them are not friendly to the United States. So to your point, that's exactly what's happening.
Well, and I also heard that the SOE, one of the SOE, who's head of the Florida Supervisor of Elections, another rogue organization in Florida that all the supervisors belong to, they run the VR system. As far as I've heard, Jeff, that the SOE, Mark Early, his wife actually too, she does the printing of the ballots.
I need you to say that name again. He said Mark Gurley.
Mark Early, EARLY. Okay. He's a supervisor in Leon County, which is funny because I see him and many things. I don't know how much work he actually gets done either. Like Wendy, he's just like, they're like spokesmen. When you see them, after a while you see enough of them, you can pick them out. You could say he's not really So his family, his wife's family does the printing. Like they own the company called Community Printers, I think it's called. Commercial printers. And it's funny because I was seeing boxes that said commercial printer in there, and I was thinking it was just called for the paper, commercial paper. So they use words like that to confuse you. So you think it's a title like, oh, that's just a box of commercial paper. But it's the title of the company that they all have investments in, and they're all like living the high life on it. I mean,
here's another thing that I want to point out. The .gov Act of 2019 and 2020, where CISA was elevated to become a top-level domain registrar, meaning they're the guys that provide the resolution of your DNS. So, for instance,
what's the act, Jeff?
The .gov Act. They keep renewing it. There was one in 2019 and one in 2020. So now CISA is acting as a private company, similar to GoDaddy and Network Solutions, which they're very suspect. There's a lot of evidence of their interference. But what they're doing, in my opinion, and I heard this from whistleblowers, as you know, I'm a Microsoft partner for over 24 years, and I've worked with programmers across the world. And I know some of these Serbian guys that worked for me early on, and then went to work for Dominion. And they warned me of a scam that would take the cookie trail, the breadcrumb trail that we find on the servers. And so what I was struggling with that. Well, what do you mean, guys? And they really couldn't explain it. But then I found out about the .gov Act 2019-2020. It made a provision that CISA is now a top-level domain registrar, meaning you go to them to secure your domain for any .gov domain, anything that ends in .gov. So now I'm doing my investigations, and I'm looking at Vote Palm Beach, which is the official website for Palm Beach County. Now it's not .com, it's a .gov website. Now I go to pay my taxes a few weeks later, and I go to the county. It's another county agency on the parallel with the supervisor of elections. This is where our deeds are recorded. This is where our property, our lot and parcel numbers, all this information that could be used for title theft, it's still .com. So why did CISA pass this law, and why are they only enforcing it on the supervisor of elections? If this is supposed to be critical infrastructure, and the law is vaguely stated that they need to be on .gov because it helps secure their data. So Why is it not on? Why is it .gov for supervisor elections? But where the people need the protection most, what they work for, probably 3 weeks out of the year to pay their mortgage, to pay their taxes, to pay their maintenance on their homes, it's wide open on .com. So it makes no sense. In my opinion, .com is safer because here's the thing. Once you're a top-level domain registrar, you have access to all of the DNS root level entries. So the DNS root level, .com, .gov, in the case of government, in case of our voting jurisdictions, CISA has a wide open key to the castle. There's also an executive order. I think it's Executive Order 14028. I have it on file. It says that CISA must grant unique permissions and access to its contractors. Now, if you go back and look at the 2020 election and the SolarWinds Orion breach, which basically allowed anyone who has this management software by SolarWinds called Orion, was breached. And that is every election jurisdiction. It was on the virtual machine that we did forensic work on in Mesa County, and we know it's breached. But now they don't need a breach because they're all on the same DNS. They're all using what's called the Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a third-party organization. It's another one of these global entities. They're using their DNS. So basically, by doing this, they've created similar to a wide area network where all of these domains, the top-level domain down to all their DNS entries, to where their where their firewall is, where their critical information is all accessible and could be very easily adjoined to become one big network. So now they have this overreach on the top level where they don't have to hack servers, where they don't need a SolarWinds Orion breach, where they have an executive order stating that their third-party affiliates must have special and unique privileges. What does that mean? It's in black and white. This is another level where they can breach. If all goes wrong and there's not enough ballot harvesting and Donald Trump's getting 80% of the vote, well, we're going to get the order, stop counting the votes, and then what they're going to do is log in on the background and from the back end, which they have total access to now that these top-level domains are all .gov. They're going to go in and they're going to start flipping images and pulling the bull crap that does leave breadcrumbs, which could potentially expose this. So that's in my opinion, the number one priority is to get the 4-digit illegal immigrants to vote, harvest those ballots, use the NGOs. If all else fails, they have the backup plan. They have CISA. They have the CISA goons on standby, waiting to stop the count, waiting to go in now and flip votes to do. Maybe they have to add voters directly to the poll, to the poll books, which are electronic. Maybe they're going to push them right into the voter registration database, because we're not seeing the volume of voter registrations in Texas or in Florida that we're seeing on Help America Verify Vote database, which lends credibility that, hey, it's a good system. But we don't know if they're just storing this data for a big, huge data dump. That's their ammunition to unload on us if all else fails. And so they're set up. This is RICO at its finest. It's more than that. It's espionage, and we have foreign actors. This is proven in the discovery from the Mark Fincham Carrie Lake versus Adrian Fontes case. The Supreme Court has information. We have emails from the guys in Serbia saying, "Oh yeah, that's my IP address. I logged in from my phone." Well, what are you doing logging in from a foreign country? So all this has to be heard. It has to come out. We're not going to out ballot harvest them. We're going to get our teeth kicked in. Communism is going to reign. The people have to step up. The local officials, they need to be arrested.
All of them, top to bottom. Anybody that had a little finger involvement in this is going to have to be brought to justice for what they've done. And they're, claiming that they don't have, oh, I didn't know, like Dana Nessel did with the ballot harvesting here in Michigan. That's not an excuse. And that's not going to buy them any clemency whatsoever, because they're guilty. They're all of them guilty.
Well,
hey, we had Jason on. Jason's been sitting here with probably his ears are bleeding. Any input? Jason's getting close to 10. I'm going to be bouncing in a few minutes.
Hey, Jason.
You're on mute.
There we go.
What's
Unmuted now. Now you can hear me. No, I was just going to say that, well, it is almost been an hour and I've been listening this whole time. I went and I've actually gotten deputized to be an election investigator for the sheriff's office. So,
Nice.
so while we were doing all of this, we were talking about sheriffs. That's what I was doing.
You
So,
got
pretty.
deputized right there?
Thank you for that.
Were you
What's
deputized
that?
while you were listening?
No, I was already deputized. I was updating some of the paperwork for my concealed carry, but because you're not supposed to have firearms in an election polling place, right? But if you're a sheriff and you're there doing law enforcement work, then
Nice.
you get an exemption. So I had to file to get my exemption added to the paperwork.
Nice.
But
Thank you.
yeah, so in regards to all of these laws being changed, you're right, spot on. There's no way to beat the fraud, but what we can do is get more eyeballs in the system. The more people who see it, recognize it, understand it, the more they're going to have a vested interest in fixing it. And participation is critical because a lot of people have tuned out. They become apathetic and they know the system's broken. They don't want to participate in a broken system. But when they participate, they have an opportunity. They have an opportunity to present what they know is broken to those around them. And you don't have to get aggressive or be
Crazy.
angry about it, right? Just point it out. Plant the seed. Voter ID being this absurdity that voter ID is racist, right? Is an easy one. That's low hanging fruit. Pointing out that the Secretary of State's office will actually cover the cost for voter ID. That transportation can be covered to get there, and they need a state ID to purchase alcohol, tobacco, and all the rest of the stuff, and to get all the rest of the benefits that they get. See, there's no reason, no excuse not to be able to have a photo ID. None whatsoever. And I think that's one of the easiest things. But also here in Michigan, you can sign an affidavit saying, "Oh yeah, I forgot my ID." We also have statute that says if you want to challenge a voter, that they have 30 days to rebut your challenge. So even on election day or even registering to vote on election day, by that time the election's already certified. There's no way to pull that ballot back out. So we have created so many loopholes in the system that it's almost absurd to think that there's not going to be a plethora of nefarious actions going on during our elections. And that's where holding our elected people accountable for fixing these idiotic loopholes that they put in the system is going to come down to we have to raise awareness and we have to increase participation.
I agree with that 100%. People need to get in the game, and care, because if you're not working to restore America, I got to tell you right there, that's about one of the most un-American things to sit back and watch this happen that I can possibly think of, and it's cowardice. And
if you're sitting on the sidelines, you're siding with the tyrants.
Exactly. Then they're guilty. If you don't fight, you're guilty of what's happening here because you're letting it happen. It's like watching a murder and sitting back and saying, well, that's interesting. Now the body's on the ground and we got blood on the sidewalk, and not stepping in to help. It's guilt.
You say the murder scenario. Now this is what I equate to what's going on with people not being involved in. And when I lived in Manhattan on the Upper West Side, I was living with the limousine liberals, and there was screams one night, and they went on for like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and no one called 911. Everyone assumed that, you're in New York City, that, someone will call. I don't have to call. And, we later that morning when the sun came up, a jogger found a dead body, a woman that was raped, tortured, and beaten right on the Upper West Side. So, I draw the same comparison to where people are, sitting on the sidelines. Well, someone's going to fix it, and we're going to, it'll be okay. But no, it's not going to be okay. It's been going on for decades, and this is the time. This is really our last chance, in my opinion, to save the country. We can't survive another 4 years of this, and we need to get elected officials who are America first, like Jason, like myself, into the system, and we need to stop this communism dead in its tracks.
Yeah, we need to have some solutions, with the cheating in the system. We have to start locally, and local action equals national impact. It's a lot easier to fight things on a local level and have them on your side. So you've got to know your candidates, and you've got to put people in position. But you also need to go in there and remove them for violating their oaths of office, for committing acts of treason. They are going to have to be removed for their failures and for the things they've done wrong. And it's possible to do that. It really is. These machines have got to be.
I really think that we need to. I really think we need to challenge the equal protectionism clause. That would devastate the bad actors, because that is the framework. Those 4 digits. Yeah. Which Social Security was never supposed to be ID. That would devastate them. That would paralyze them. That would neutralize them. We see that Trump, that the conservative movement is probably, I'm going to say 66 to 75% of the will of the people. And I really think that needs to be challenged. We need to raise money. We need to find an attorney. I don't know, Jason, what do you think? Am I grasping at straw on that 14th Amendment?
No, that's lends itself to voter suppression, right? Because at the end of the day, having a bunch of non-citizens or migratory people, right? Even within the United States, you could change your. We have our primaries all offset across the country. If all of our primaries are offset, guess what that does? It creates opportunities for migratory people to change their voting jurisdiction from state to state to state and vote in multiple primaries before voting in the general election.
Explain that, Jason.
So, for example, if you remember the runoffs with Warnock and Ossoff, right? There was a tweet that went out by Andrew Yang saying, hey, change your voter registration and vote in the election, which is illegal within a certain time frame, right? It's also illegal to intentionally do it and not actually reside in the state. But they were doing it anyway, and there's no repercussions for it because no law enforcement office has the time or the resources to go after every single one of those. And when the prosecutors are letting violent offenders back out on the streets, what's the priority? Their priority is trying to get the violent people off the street. They're literally being overwhelmed with priorities. And that's right. It's all about overwhelming and causing the system to collapse, and that's by design.
I never heard of that before. I never heard that they were doing
Andrew,
it. Like another day you wake up and it's like, you got to be kidding me.
No, to clarify, Andrew Yang is a New York guy, and he blew the dog whistle for New Yorkers to go down to Georgia and vote for Warlock and Ossoff.
Yeah. So that creates migratory voting. And when you only need, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 people to swing an election, especially in the primaries where the turnout tends to be pretty low, you get 10, 15% of the max, maybe 20% voter turnout. You can easily have, a big city like New York where you've got a block of people that are part of an organization, maybe a union or something like that, but that has 10,000 people in the state that are a part of it. And they tell their members to go change their votes. And even if 2,000, 3,000.
Women legal voters.
So we have many
Right.
organizations, mostly not unions. Those guys got to be at work. Now we have this whole, newcomer migrant class, illegal immigrants that are, easily swayable. But here's the kicker. I have the supervisor of elections on video. I said to her, so in Palm Beach County, there's no proof of residency to require to vote. So I said, Wendy, so that means that Michael Bloomberg could send 5,000 people down here in buses. They could camp out, register to vote, and throw an election. And she said, yeah, take it up with Tallahassee. It's not my law. So
Exactly.
you need to prove residency to get a driver's license. You should have to prove residency. That's yet another, migrant voting is yet another problem, yet another weakness that's embedded into the system.
Right. But yeah, exactly. And so migrant voting is actually citizens, instead of illegal, the whole illegal and the 4-digit Social Security. The migrant voting are actually citizens that are registering multiple jurisdictions, or they're transitory voters that are voting multiple elections over the course of a year throughout the country. But those people are literally just doing that. And if you have a big enough block of those people, and you had a pool of money that could tell them where to go and what to do, you could swing enough elections that why even put money into campaign coffer, right? You could literally just exploit the loopholes in the system and get everybody you want elected. And I'm sure that there's some people out there that would rather do that instead of putting money into the campaigns of candidates.
Well, that's where the Ukraine money's going, in my opinion. In my opinion, the Ukraine money is coming back full circle to steal the election, to pay for the organization of the NGOs that are going to change their hats from voter registration fraud to going out and ballot harvesting. So I think you have Ralph, the IT guy's waiting, Don. I think we're after 10. I'm going to have to get my day going.
I finally figured out how to get that video up. Do you want me to play that other video that you sent to me?
Absolutely. Okay. Let's give it a roar. I'm going to get my camera up, save some bandwidth.
Hang on a second here, because I think that I think Ralph will be okay with waiting. And hang on a minute,
This has been so much fun, you guys. Thank you.
I'm not seeing it on the screen.
Hold on, I'm getting there. I'm slow, Jeff. I'm slow.
All right. No, I heard it, but I didn't see it.
Yeah, remember, I'm like the little sister.
Violations continue to pile up, with over 9,500 violations of Florida Code 98098128 in the November 2020 election. The January 11th special election had 68 violations.
We got to add to this one for 2023, 2024.
Okay.
Election. The violations persist. 98.09812A specifies the data reporting requirements to be in compliance. This information is on the Supervisor of Elections website. Here, we can see where the SOE is negligent in their duties. Columns with over 29 votes must be itemized per election code. Here, we see the SOE properly reporting, with vote totals over 29 being broken down and in compliance with 98.09812A. The congressional primary for Florida CD20 was determined by only 5 votes, while totaling 68 violations. Even the left-wing Sun Sentinel could see that voters have a right to be angry. With over 9,700 violations in 2020 alone, the problem continues into 2022, with Palm Beach County municipal elections having over 490 violations. Let's evaluate our threat surface. Trend of reporting violations identified, 3rd-degree misdemeanor. Trend of lack of transparency continues from 2020 through current elections. Palm Beach County Sheriff is unwilling to take action complete per office. The detail of reporting is critical. Accurate reporting is critical to election integrity. The current level of reporting would not be tolerated by the private sector. The people of Palm Beach County should not tolerate this trend. We need to take action. Call Sheriff Rick Bradshaw and demand action. Be persistent. Keep the pressure on Wendy Sartori Link. Get your friends and family informed and involved. Pursue surety and indemnity bonds and take civil action. Only we, the people, can take back our elections and ensure election integrity going forward. Take action, stay informed, and demand accountability.
Just a caveat to that. When the law was explained that the 1 to 29, so just one thing, that it's not those what is depicted that it's a crime. It's not a crime because the as I showed you, they started flip-flopping words in the code. So what they did was, if there's 1 to 29 within a certain ballot group, okay, not an aggregate number, a ballot group, legally, they can only report the aggregate. And this is total bullcrap. Their excuse is, well, if it's only 29 votes or if it's only 1 vote, someone can go in, look at the precinct, and figure out how a person voted, okay? So they're using this protection of the voter's identity and who they voted for as a front to obfuscate, 40% of the vote detail. And I said, what I say to these politicians who all coincidentally in lockstep have the same answer. Well, if it's between 1 and 29, someone could go in and figure out who voted for what. So my response is, okay, so if they're really that motivated to do this,
Right.
they can't count past 29? 30 is the magic number where their brain shuts off? It makes no logical sense. It's a law to obfuscate the votes because the vote by mail ballots are so heavily weighted that if we saw those numbers, it just wouldn't make sense.
Can I just add to that, Jeff? What I observed in this municipal election is for 10 days of early voting, she didn't get over 100 people per day early voting. That's ridiculous. This is Palm Beach County. She can't even to justify that number, I can find out if 2 people voted at early voting. I can find out if they're Republican or Democrat because I'm following it on my screenshots and I see what's coming in every day. So that whole thing, I just debunked that on my own.
If this wasn't so serious, it'd be laughable.
It is. And, it needs to get out there. Donna, thank you for doing this. Whistling Mama Bear, thank you for all your work. You've put in, like, you are the warriors on the front line. I'm sitting here behind a monitor all day and researching stuff, but you're out there, you're putting yourself at harm's way, your family, you have sheriffs knocking at your door. And thank you for that.
That's awesome. Jason, you have any last words here? Jason's busy.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank Jason too. Donna, thank you. Ralph, the IT guy, coming on. Thank you. And
thank you guys, and you have a great day. And we'll be talking. I won't be on next week, and so it'll be the following week that we'll be on. So look forward to talking to you guys again. Thank you so much for all you're doing. You're just rock stars out there. And I'll be right back.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome. We'll be right back with Ralph and Karen.
This is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hang on, wrong one. And welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 22nd day of April 2024. And I'm going to bring Ralph and Karen right on. How you guys doing? Thanks for being patient, guys.
Good. How are you?
Good. Awesome. So what's happening in Ralph and Karen world today?
Oh, just listening to the previous guests and thinking, the other thing about voter ID being racist is it's not just, you need alcohol, you need ID to be able to buy alcohol. So clearly buying alcohol is racist, but you've also got staying in hotels, boarding an airplane, renting a car, all kinds of different municipal services. There's so much stuff that's tied to that to say that it's racist is to call an awful lot of other systems racist.
Yeah. Um, all of these labels are nothing more than manipulations. And I'm kind of done with them from all directions. I mean, it's really ridiculous, moronic, and it needs to be stopped. We need to treat people as an individual and identify. I identify as Donna Brandenburg. What does that mean? It's up to you to find out if you care. And if you don't care, then just, you know what I mean? It's like don't try to peg me into. And I had a really interesting, because I talked to everyone. Remember, I literally talked to everyone. And I have friends that are in many different categories of people, because all I do is see people as people. And there's no one person who is perfect. Everyone has their beautiful little flaws and all these happy little mistakes that happen. We'll use Bob Ross's words, because we're human. And so I was talking to a friend last night who happens to be gay, and he is done with all of the labels within the gay community. He's like, I don't understand this. He said I don't even understand the lingo anymore. And it was really very telling. One of the things that he did say is he said I didn't choose to be gay. He said, I remember being 7 years old, and it would be really interesting for people to talk to this person, because I know him very well. And he said, I don't even understand the lingo. And he said, I would never choose to be this way. If you gave me an option to be this way, he said, I would never choose to be the way I am. And he said, I think that if you talk to a lot of people out there, they would feel the same. So our discussion on this ended up with, I really believe that all of these people that are, and he's like, I hate the gay pride thing. I hate the flags. I hate the rainbow crap. He said, I'm never gay enough for half the people that are gay. And they criticize me for it because I'm not gay enough, because he said, my identity doesn't focus on the fact that I, in fact, am a gay man. He said, I'm a person. And I'm like, well, my opinion is that all of this stuff, the parades, the gay flags, the drag shows, all of this stuff that's going on, I really absolutely believe that they're being paid for by somebody, and they're not representative of the communities. You've got the churches that are all of a sudden, this is what it means to be Christian, and they close their doors. Well, I don't identify with that kind of a person at all. That's a coward. That's not somebody who I would identify with as a Christian, no matter if they go under the label. Or women that are hostile to men and want to just, want to be just as, militantly feminist as I don't identify with that. And I am a female and I'm not confused, but I would never identify as that. And I don't appreciate being put into categories that are only representative of people that are crazy. These people are nuts. And I believe that they're being funded by something. And so that they divide us from people who just really want to live their lives, and there was one of the guys that I know, Reward Carpenter. Somebody went after him because he wasn't Christian enough, and he said the F word. Oh my gosh, it's horrible. And call CPS on him and take his kids away. This is nuts. This is crazy. This is nuts.
Well, and all of us really should be listening to opinions that we disagree with.
Yes.
Because you should be challenged on all of your opinions to see if they actually stand up. And in a lot of cases, there is, even with people that, and you should listen to people that you disagree with, not just to come back and argue with them, but listen to their points, because a lot of times there is some truth in the things that you may disagree with. Like, for example, the defund the police movement, what it has become, I disagree with it. But if you actually listen to some of the original defund the police people, the way that movement started was about the problem of the military taking their old equipment and basically pawning it off on local police departments to militarize them, where the local police departments then ended up having to take on the burden of doing all the maintenance on all of this old military equipment. And that was the original core of the defund the police movement. And to that effect, I would have to say that it's probably worth taking a look at to see if this stuff is actually worth spending the money on maintaining this, when it's arguably not really the local police department's job in a lot of cases.
Well, it's all of those distractions. It's the distractions. It's just like, I'm going to beat up on modern day Christianity again, because that's what I do, right? It's like, because there's so much fraud going on in it. It's not even funny. Jesus sat with tax collectors and prostitutes. He didn't sit there virtue signaling from the pulpit and from the church. How many Christians do you know that are like, it's like them and them and them, and they're pointing fingers and they're accusing people instead of, and it is incredibly hostile. And it's in their little piety, I'm better than them and I know this and this, that self-righteous crap. It's like, you know what? I don't think that's the way we're supposed to be acting. I mean, we're supposed to be looking at ourselves. You take the plank out of your own eye before you go after everyone else, and introspectively figure out ourselves and what we're doing wrong. And then, I'm not saying giving a pass to things. I'm the last one to say that. But you know what? To approach it this way, and those people, and I'm not even going to use the labels, because somebody's going to clip the sound bite out and say, look at what Brandenburg did out of context. Luckily for me, I do it all live, so I say what I say, and that's the way it is. But they'll it's like they're not even understanding what's happening and how smaller groups are being attacked. They're being peeled off predators. And then it becomes this match of who's going to get who. I had a guy that tried to trap me in a conversation, and because you run for office, everybody's trying to trap you all the time. It's kind of like becomes sport for me, because it's kind of it's so ridiculous. And this gay man came up to me and he said, well, I want to talk to you about this. He said, what is your opinion of gay marriage? And then they always do it the same way. They stick their chin out because they're challenging you. I want to know what you think about gay marriage. And I'm like, I think it's a stupid discussion. It's a dumb discussion. And let me tell you why. This whole discussion is absolutely stupid. And I said it to him this way. I didn't mince any words with him. I said, this is a dumb discussion, and let me tell you why. Why is the government in marriage at all?
Yep.
And he looked at me and he's like, huh? And I said, do you realize that with the government being in marriage at all, and on any level, all they're doing is taking possession of your possessions and betting that your marriage is going to fail, so that they can claim an 18% judgment of the judgment, and or claim who gets the kids, who gets this, who gets that, who gets that. They become the executor of your marriage. And it's also the people that are involved in this are actually doing it as a money grab. Why would you include the government in marriage at all? Oh, because there's a tax incentive. That's why this thing became such a huge deal. They dangled the carrot of the tax incentive out there for everyone. So all of a sudden, gay marriage became a thing because of the tax incentives for it and the recognition of that. And the government dangled that little carrot, and everybody bid on it and said, "Yep, we gotta do it this way." And but what's really behind the scenes is acquiring everything that you own, having jurisdiction over your marriage, your children, and everything else. I believe that the entire government should be out of marriages. You want to get married? I'm not going to agree with maybe what you do, but guess what? It's not my business at this point in time in a private manner. And so I really do believe that marriage, the term, I believe to be, defined by what is said in the Bible, right? But the government's involvement in it has taken this and weaponized the entire sanctity of marriage. So there you go. That's what I stand on. And then I also told him, I said, don't ask me this question again, and I know this person very well. I said, because it's a stupid question and I'm not going to be baited into this. That's my opinion. I say what I say. And you know what his reaction was? His reaction was, I never thought of it that way. And I'm like, because everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid, and they're being weaponized to move forward into being the foot soldiers of the ones that are trying to keep us from being able to function together. We are going to have to work with people that we disagree with. Go back to the base premise. Jesus sat with tax collectors and prostitutes. He didn't sit in the echo chambers. He went to the people, and he didn't have a qualifier there. And, it's like God does all the work. When we turn to him, he wants a relationship with all of us, no matter what our spiritual condition is. He wants a relationship. And when we turn to him, the process may not happen instantaneously, but when we turn that over to God, God works through the issues, and we stop playing God in our virtue signaling capacity. And I think that's the biggest problem we have in modern day Christianity. Everybody's trying to play God instead of letting God be God. We don't save anybody. We can tell them how loved they are. And in fact, if somebody feels alone, why run from God? He already knows everything about you anyway. He's sitting right there with you. He knows your thoughts, your actions, what you've done in the dark. He knows everything about you. So you might as well turn to him and say, well, I guess I kind of don't have this figured out. What can you help me? First step to anything.
That kind of goes along too with so one of the things I've been studying quite a bit lately has been the Book of Job, and I love the Book of Job. One of the things I love about it is that traditionally you hear the interpretation of that from most of the large churches and religious movements. The typical interpretation is that, well, Job was a righteous man, and the whole book of Job is about how Job's faith withstood all of the trials and tribulations, and it really proved that he was a righteous man. I didn't get that at all. You read through the book of Job, and it's like there is so much in there about basically telling Job, stop your self-righteous complaining and whining, realize that we are all imperfect, and come back to God and stop trying to do this on your own, because you can't.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much of that like nearly the entire book is basically about Job complaining about how wronged he is because he's perfect, and his friends, and then finally God coming in and telling him, stop it with the self-righteousness. You are just as imperfect as all of the rest of humanity.
Well, and look at what the churches do with a lot of the churches with putting all of these patriarchs and the people that are in the Bible on a pedestal. They all had just incredible flaws. I mean, and the story isn't about their behavior. Their story is not about the thou shalt not and this, that, and the other thing. There's some there is that there, but it really was about God's mercy and the story of showing him as a loving father who has a balance. It's like a dad or a mom. I'm gonna let you do it. And how's that working for you? To see if you get smarter to come back to what he set out as the rules. But he's going to hand your tail to you if you don't follow his rules. It's his creation, but it's also his mercy. He should have fried everybody on this planet so many times over that it's not even funny. Right now, we deserve absolutely him coming on this planet and frying this place. And that goes to every single one of us. We deserve it because we walked away from our duty to keep things working and honoring him in his position as God Almighty, the creator of this whole world. This is his world. But his great mercy he is applying mercy to us. And I do believe that he will save. His pattern is, if you kind of get to know him a little bit, is he will save a nation, he will save a people, just even based on the faith of one who actually has love for the nation, sees the flaws, does not condemn it, but is willing to work with him. It's a patterns over and over and over again.
Yeah. And there's, another thing too is you hear, all of the stuff about how the Old Testament is, that God was completely different in the Old Testament than he is in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, he was just an angry God of wrath and fury.
Yeah,
and
fire and brimstone.
Yeah, and you read through it, and it's like, my gosh, there's so much focus on forgiveness.
It's amazing.
It's like the Yom Kippur is all about celebrating God's forgiveness. And it's a recurring theme throughout the entire Bible.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you right now, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that, and I think all of us have to come to that terms, is that, I deserve to be fried to a crispy critter. And if it were, I really do believe that. And, and it's not, it can be even things that your actions, there are times where somebody will piss me off enough that I'm just like, my heart isn't right. And I know that. So I have to stop, take a walk around the building a little bit, go back to God and say, okay, God, I need to see this person with your eyes, not with mine. And the first step when something goes wrong or you're annoyed with somebody, we all have it, right? We are not seeing things with God's eyes, and we have to bring it back to center and say every day, God, help me to forgive. Help me to forgive. I forgive and say, I forgive this person. You do that for your own heart. You don't do that for them. You do that for you so that you cleanse your heart and you don't hold anything against people. And then say, I give this situation, I give this person to you, and please give me the eyes to love them, not the way that I feel, but the way that you see them and feel about them, as offensive or as crazy as they may seem. And he will cleanse that. And even that level it doesn't even have to be an egregious type of a sin. Sin is sin, and we're imperfect, and we have to be able to be okay with it and say, you know what, we're imperfect, but he is perfect, and he will cover us with his righteousness and make things right. And then gently take us through things that change us. And all of a sudden you look back and go, wow, that's what I was, but that person's no longer here. There's a new creation in place, somebody who sees the world through a lens of love and forgiveness, but also righteousness and the justice that needs to happen on this planet. There's a wonderful balance there that happens, and discernment and wisdom that the more you exercise your spiritual wings, the more you actually watch him, the perfecter of our faith, put that faith into action. It's tremendous.
Yep. And it's not about our perfection. There's a reason why it's, go and sin no more. We're all imperfect. We all deserve to be fried. Mm-hmm. And it's just, you try your best. You are going to screw up, but you keep trying. You don't just give up on it and say, well, it's just the way I am.
Yeah. And it's like, and then some people will say, no, I'm fine. I'm perfect. I do everything right. Have you ever seen anybody do that? It's kind of laughable. And it's like, you can BS some people, but you're going to peg the bullshit meter here when somebody says that, because it's not realistic. It's an in denial state. And, when you do get comfortable with being in your skin and saying, yep, screwed up on this again. Okay. All right, Papa, I need some forgiveness on this, and I need to change help me through this so that I can elegantly not do this again or find a better way, and that's what it's about. It's being with a shepherd that takes you to green pastures, what you need every day. It's not like waist deep, and it doesn't even mean, your provision. It means how we think and how we're moving forward and learning those things that are eternal. It's green pastures in Bible times was like it blew, the grass greened up in the morning when the dew hit it, and it was fried by afternoon. A good shepherd knew where to find what we need just for that day. It doesn't need to be overwhelming. It's a step-by-step process.
Yep. And the minute you think that you're perfect and you're better than everybody else and you've got all this handled, well, right there, you're pretty well guilty of pride. So now you're not perfect. So there you go.
Yeah, and God's going to go pink, and he's going to knock you right off your pedestal. It's better off just to come to life every day and say, I'm a shit shoveler. That's what I do, and just kind of come to be comfortable with you're not trying to be somebody in the worldly terms, but just be okay with being a child of God, whatever that may be today. And sometimes it's a good day, sometimes it's a bad day, but we're learning every step of the way, and we're glorifying God by his mercy and his love for us. Even in our failings, when we're weak, he is strong. It's a beautiful thing, and it's okay. It's okay to be yourself, because everybody out there, you're exactly the way that he created you for a reason, and his purposes will be accomplished, which is it's beautiful. What say you, Karen?
I was just going to say amen. I take back a little bit in the conversation to I shared a couple of posts last night because I thought it was pretty interesting. So Biden goes to this town where there's a company, what's it called? Spats or Sprats or something like this. 2 days late, nobody shows up. He goes into this coffee house, and they're supposed to be making it like, oh, look, the president's here. And the people are like, eh. There's no show. Like when Trump comes to town, Trump visits a coffee house, for example, or a McDonald's. Everybody wants to be a part of that. Biden walks in, and nobody cares at all. 2 days later, the Biden administration, I like when they always generalize it that way, the Biden administration sues that company. Why? Because they require a criminal background check of their employees. And according to the government, that's a violation of racial discrimination.
Oh, it's all racial.
Because the criminal background check is more likely to come up with minorities, and because of that, it's a racist issue, and they can't use criminal background checks on their employee applications. And I can't help but laugh. But isn't it interesting that it happens 2 days after he goes there to this location? So it's just.
So clearly, if that's the case, then purchasing a firearm is one of the most racist things you could possibly do, because it requires both ID and a background check.
See how that works, guys? See how this all works? It's amazing that they try to shut us all down. But
so clearly, we need to remove all of the restrictions on getting firearms because they're all racist, right?
There you go. There you go. Use their stupid stuff against them, because these people are kind of stupid, really. So
another topic too that I'm kind of going on the subject of things that have a grain of truth in them, that if you actually listen to people that you disagree with, you can find those grains of truth. Have you ever looked into the original origin of the 15-minute cities concept?
A little.
Because that is a real interesting one. Now it's basically all about trapping people within a certain radius for failing their social credit score checks, But the original concept for that was actually really good, and was about removing the zoning restrictions that have stifled the development of downtown areas, where, like, you go back to older sections of town. You had a commercial space on the first floor, and then you had residential spaces above that, where it was a mixed-use building, so that the shopkeepers could live above their shop. And so you had these mixed use areas all over the place. You had people living in the same spaces that they were working, and you had these small neighborhoods where you had, the grocer that's downtown who lives above the shop, right? So you had really most of the stuff that you would need within a 15-minute radius of you, just by the sheer fact of that you had a mixture of things and didn't separate it out into commercial spaces downtown and then suburbs around it, and also creating a transportation nightmare because now everybody rushes downtown in the morning and at night and clogs up all the roads. Well, the core of the 15-minute cities concept was basically, hey, what we're doing now ain't working. Let's go back to the way we used to do it, of allowing for these mixed use spaces so that you can have these little micro communities within a downtown area, and you're curtailing some of the urban sprawl. And so it has since been co-opted, like many of these movements. It's been since co-opted into something completely different than the original concept behind it. But if you listen to some of those people that are involved in it and have been involved in it since the beginning, a lot of them are just as frustrated with what's gone on with that movement because it got away from their original ideals.
Well, and I think we have to question everything because so many things have been co-opted. To your point here on the 15-minute cities too, that really, if you go to Europe, the cities are very, very small there. They don't have the sprawling that, it's like you have they're protecting their farmland. They're way better than what we are here. And I blame the developers for this because, most of the time you go into the townships and the cities and they're all staffed by developers. You look at where the big money is, it's always in land. You can look at, say, like Ron Weiser and some of the people that were on he was the head of the MIGOP there for a while. But look at how many of these people are in positions of power who are developers. And it's a huge conflict of interest when you see that what they use their position to commandeer the land. And in this town, I mean, the township hit a tax bill. There's no two ways about it that I didn't even know was there. It took us 3 times to go down there and to talk to them. And finally, somebody looked into the computer system and said, oh my God, it's here. How come that wasn't out? And we were like 30 days of being foreclosed on, didn't even know it existed. And the township people couldn't see it. It's incredible. We've got to be able to question everything. I've got something else that I really want to put out there today with you guys. Unless you want to talk to this point, I'm going to move to another one that's just tangent to this.
Well, no, that was actually one of the original goals of the 15-minute cities concept, was to curtail the urban sprawl, and a lot of them actually had the kind of the explicit goal of protecting the farmland,
which is kind of interesting. I think people need to have some choice. It's co-opted. The whole thing is just co-opted.
Yeah.
So I want to bring something up though on President Trump, because I've got this feeling that President Trump, right from the beginning, he had so many bad guys around him, it wasn't even funny. And I got to tell you something that's really been eating on me right now. Okay. So with my traveling around, and I love President Trump, I love everything he's done for this country. And everybody knows that my ability to be loyal to people is almost like a superpower. So truly, when somebody proves themselves to me, I will follow them, into the trenches and never turn my back on them. Right. And I feel that way about only a few people that I've met in politics. But President Trump earned our respect and our loyalty, but I'm really worried about him. And I'm going to say this. Absolutely. I am truly worried about President Trump. I don't know if it's the people that are around him. I don't know if it's been co-opted, but I've been where he has been several times. And what happened when I went from Washington, D.C., I was in Washington, D.C., and I got to see things on the ground. This is what it comes down to, is us being able to see things with our own eyes, making decisions, and being able to speak about what we've actually seen and experienced. And I want everybody to think about this, because it's really eating on me. And I put it out there a little bit here and there, but I want to sit here and make a statement on this, because I'm concerned. It's a big concern of mine. So we were in Washington, D.C., and I hear all this crap about Washington, D.C., all the graffiti, oh no, and, and the crime and such. People on my team were out on scooters until 2 a.m. I saw no threats. I saw no graffiti. It's probably one of the cleanest cities that I've been in. I never felt concerned or afraid or anything like this. And we were walking around, and the city is vital. There were wonderful restaurants there, and it was clean and it was beautiful. And I felt very, very proud of what Washington, D.C. looked like from a structure. But all these things that had been told to us, it's like, I never saw any of it. Now the corruption in the seats were, that has been going on. We don't know a lot of what's going on, but I was able to go out on Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson's balcony. Now, it was only like 4 of us that had clearance to go out there, but I was there and I was able to walk out on that. And we were wonderfully accepted, which tells me, kind of some crazy things on why I had clearance to this stuff. We need to think about this and question everything. Well, 2 weeks later, I was down in Mar-a-Lago, and there were some other things that I observed there because I'm an observing kind of person that didn't make sense to me. There were a lot of things that didn't make sense to me that maybe weren't exactly as things are being portrayed. Within 24 hours, I was in New York City and went to Cipriani, and President Trump was there also. He was there at Mar-a-Lago, and then he was there in New York City. And he sat up there and he was talking about, oh, how bad the graffiti is in Washington, D.C. And, we've got Washington, D.C. is a mess and all the graffiti. And I sat there and I was like, that's not true. And it really bothered me. I sat there and I was absolutely going, I don't know what's going on here, but that is absolutely untrue. And I don't know why he said it. I'm still pondering this. But I was there, and it's not true. There is no graffiti in Washington, D.C. I saw none, and I was there, and we went all over the place. And I've got a record of all the monuments we went to and how quickly we went to and how we were in Arlington. We were all over the place. And it was absolutely, something was said that was not true. And now I'm looking at all of the things that are out there to raise money for President Trump. And I think that the main organization is called Trump Victory that was created. And I know of the people who are behind it. And I've got some questions, some large questions, because I don't know what's going on there. But President Trump, who we follow, who I love, and I have incredible respect for this man, for what he did for this nation, to lay everything he had on the line to defend us. Everything, all of his policies were spot on. And he set this nation up for a complete tax overhaul for, I don't know if it's another time, the next person that gets in or whatever, but look at his executive orders, look at all of this stuff. He set us up for a chip shot to take this nation back. But he said that, which makes me ask some questions. Are they still trying to wake people up? But why would he say that? Does he know the truth? Or is he being fed a lie? Or what? But I'm going to tell you what, it's not true. And a lot of the things that we're being told are true. I'm going to tell you right now, are absolutely patently not true. When you see the border down on the south, I mean, I've seen some videos. I haven't been there, and I'd like to go down there, but I've got a lot of questions on what we are seeing. But the one thing, I think a lot of it's distraction, but the one thing that I'm going to tell you that is not a distraction is our elections that are being stolen and the child trafficking that's going on. This stuff is real. And we can't lose focus to the fact that if we want all of these things righted, we are going to have to show up at every election. We are going to have to show up at our local township zoning, our boards. We have to get in the game, or it's just going to be this continuation of smoke and mirrors. The process and the structure is to hold people accountable on the local level, which these people communicate to the townships. I'm not even sure. And I heard something in a discussion with Jason Ikes that I was like, just like, you know, the discussion I had with the marriage should not be a government function. Not at all. This person said the townships need to be abolished. And I listened to the argument on that, and I'm still chewing on this. Let me tell you what. But the thought behind this, and I think we need to listen to everyone and ponder and go, huh. The statement that was said on that was that this was part of the steel of the nation, is to break it up. Why do we have townships? He said it should just go to the counties. Because I know that our township had a $30 million overage, and they made an improvement on our township hall. They're literally part of the steel. So I think we really need to look at this from the bottom up. And they hire people, another person I talked to, who are basically administrative people who look at their job, look at their numbers, and stay right there. But they're not doing their overall job. They can be manipulated because they won't look at the overall election fraud, election maladministration, and the malfeasance that were going on, because they're focused just on their part of the problem. And when somebody goes and talks to them, they just like, nope, they defend their position. I did everything right. I know that we were right. Okay, somebody came to you with a problem. You're supposed to be listening to them and taking notes and finding out what are they talking about, not defending the castle of the enemy. And that's exactly what's going on here. So I think this is all areas we need to look to. And I'm going to tell you what, I think that the clerks that are out there right now, I would put them all on notice and say, you either come forward and decide to look into this stuff with us, because it may or may not have happened in your hands. But if you're not looking at the things that people are talking about, it's just like people not jumping in at the citizen level and doing their civic duty. They're part of the structure of the enemy. And at that point in time, a lot of people have been threatened. You need to come forward. You need to find somebody to talk to who will back you and come forward. And even so, you have to deliver the truth regardless what the cost is, and be willing to stand as an American and say that stops here. But it's a mess. It is absolutely a mess. And I am in favor of, if somebody violates that trust, they may never hold public office ever again, because they proved that they didn't have the guts and the integrity to stand when things go wrong. They allowed it, and they jumped in bed with them. And I also really believe that they need to be stripped of their citizenship if they make it past the trials for treason.
Well, and I think too, another thing is, politician should never be a career.
Correct. Well, what do you think of this graffiti thing?
Well, you've been asking that question since you first heard it, and it might just be one of those puzzlers that we never get an answer to, unfortunately. Trump has said a lot of things over time, like his endorsements, for one. That's a fine example of, I want you to look closer at this person that I am quote unquote endorsing. The Kafef thing, when he's misspelled things and he's pointing things out for us to look into. So what is he, if it was done purposefully to get us to look closer and discover something, it may be that we just haven't discovered it yet. And it may be that at some point in the future, Donna Brandenburg is going to make that connection, because she's the one that's been, it's been tickling your mind for some time, and you're the one that's going to see what he wanted us to see. It may be that one has gone over people's heads. I don't think it's a
affidavit on it, and
I don't think it's a mistake.
No, he doesn't make mistakes. It's intentional.
Well, I think too, another thing to keep in mind is, don't look to anyone, even people that you trust, as an unquestionable authority figure. Even any of us, question everything, because even the information that we may be finding, or that someone else that you that you very much trust is finding. They may be being fed information from somewhere else that's false from a person that they trust. You know, there is a very strong possibility of, I mean, I certainly try to be as accurate and truthful as I can, but you know, there's an awful lot of stuff that's like, there's an awful lot of stuff that gets repeated around by people that I would otherwise consider very trustworthy, that is very difficult to verify. And so it's one of those things that everyone should be questioning everything, and not just basically going down the idolatry path of thinking that someone is perfect, no matter who it is, and that everything that they say is going to be perfect, no matter who it is, because not all of the information out there is perfect.
And that's part of our duty to each other, is that when we see something where somebody's making a mistake, or we can bring more information forward, we need to talk with each other, not in a hostile way, but say, hey, I really wanted, the amazing thing is the people that watch this channel, I watch the chats, I read every single chat that's out there, and, or comment that's out there on the chats and such. I haven't gotten a chance to read them yet today from today's chat. And if I don't comment on them, you know what I do? I screenshot them so that if I can come around and go around to those questions later, I will answer them. But it is our responsibility, because nobody can know everything. We're a family, and we're supposed to be helping each other out. So in a non-combative way, to say, hey, don't, and this is another thing, to automatically jump to the fact that somebody is evil and has evil intentions. It's kind of a mentally ill process, because it's paranoia, and not everyone is evil. Some people are just not aware of what's going on. There are some people that are absolutely evil, and they know what they're doing. There's no two ways about it. But we can't automatically jump to the conclusions that somebody is evil. And I was like President Trump. I don't believe that he's an evil person. I believe he's a very good person that stepped in to do something extraordinary. But we do need to be questioning these things and say, wait a minute, we don't worship President Trump. We respect the office. We thank him, and we have great honor to him for what he's done. Same as anybody who has the guts to step forward, because I'm going to tell you what, stepping into a position to be in any office is a crap job. It's not a job that anybody, unless there's a money payoff, or unless they see things melting down to the point that we have lost our country, or we're going to lose our country, a true patriot, it's one of the greatest acts, selfless acts a person can commit in America, is being an American. Step forward. So, do you guys want me to read?
I have a great deal of respect for him, but like I said, everyone needs to be questioning everything from everyone.
The thing is with Trump, I'm just going to say this. Have you ever heard him say anything else which does not turn out to be true? Past, present, future.
Yeah, he's got a pretty good track record.
He does have a really good track record. So I agree, Ralph, and I think people miss that in the Q drops. Some people say, well, it's meant to just, you're just going to follow along with whatever it says. No, it makes it very clear if you're reading in there well, which I'm not much of a student of it. I try, but the people who studied it well are going to point out to you that there are going to be mistakes in there, and some of them are intentional, and it's supposed to make you really question everything. So when you question everything, you don't necessarily lose faith in the source. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. But in the case of Trump, that wasn't an imitation Trump, a stand-in, let's say, making a simple mistake, because it was a very deliberate topic of discussion that he put out there. It wasn't just like a simple phrase that he slipped. It was very, very intentional. So why was it? And with him in particular, I tend to believe what he says, but look at it from his perspective. Look at it from the 10,000-foot view, because if you look too close, you're going to miss something. If you're looking at the Capitol, you may be completely missing the point. He may be directing you to look somewhere else. He may be using a metaphor. You have to look at it a little differently, but was it a mistake or was it an intentional misleading? I doubt that with him. And not to say that he couldn't do that. He could do that and throw us all off, and boy, we would be a little ticked if that happened, because he does have a good track record. But
I think this is really good, though, because it is teaching us to question. And I think that the whole thing with Q, because I followed the Q post right from the beginning. In fact, I'm in the Q post. I have a post where Q called, pointed me out, and it was a beautiful thing. One of the greatest moments of my life, quite honestly. I loved that. That was great. But the fact of the matter is we've got a whole culture that is dependent upon the lies and the system that they created to keep the system in place. We have to call it out when we see it and say, that's not true, and start thinking, and then wake other people up to the fact that, we've got to question it. Or, our blind faith, we're only supposed to have faith in God alone, not in anything other than that. The rest of it is up for question and conjecture on what we're hearing, but only faith in God, and everything else gets to be questioned.
Well, and I think too, the other thing is that you should treat everyone that way. And one, I see this a lot in the conservative movement, that people will hold one person up as a pinnacle or a bastion of our movement, and then they make one mistake and they're abandoned.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, they're evil, they're the enemy now. And then they try and move on to somebody else. But it's this constant seeking out of a savior,
Give us a king.
Rather than it's us that's supposed to be doing this. We shouldn't be looking for one person to save us. It is our responsibility. It's all of our responsibility. And it is not possible to find perfection in any candidate. We're all flawed, and it's all going to be imperfect. So you have to find someone who is suitable, who can do the job, but you're not going to find a perfect person. And to say, oh, I can't find a perfect person, so I'm just not going to vote at all, is a trap that I see a lot of people getting into.
Well, you might be part of the problem. And let's go back and look at the education sham system that we have, the indoctrination system. The school systems teach to fail or test to fail. So instead of testing a student's knowledge to make sure that they have mastery over it, it is my opinion that every student going through school should be able to come out with an AA plus education. If they don't, it's the failing of how the system is set up. So they test people in order to fail them instead of having them learn the mastery of the subject. They're not using it as a diagnostic test. They're using it to fail. And people in politics approach it the same way. They ask you questions. They don't really want to know what you know. They keep testing you until you fail so that they can see, I told you this person is not a good person. It's like, well, that's kind of like a low IQ situation. I'm just going to tell everybody that that's kind of stupid, because it's unrealistic to expect somebody who's running, and it's overwhelming. That's why we won't get people to run for places or for positions, because it is so hostile. Why would they buy themselves that kind of disrespect and lack of people actually getting to know them and work with them? We need to inform them first, not going into the crazy way that we know the woke society has gone into, that crazy nonsense out there of and then they put it under, it's our right to protest. You're not protesting. You're attacking. You're a domestic terrorist, and you're taking on domestic terrorist activities like blocking roads. that's a domestic terrorism. That's domestic terrorism because it's violating other people's rights. You have the right, but you don't have the right to violate anybody else's right. So they have failed completely the test on that one. But
yeah, and also the with this, I'm not saying, vote for the lesser of two evils, because you're still voting for evil at that point. But by golly, don't just completely opt out of the entire process because you can't find perfection. Go vote no confidence for, or anything. Vote, research all of the candidates, find one that's suitable and vote for them. But don't just opt out of it either. Just basically out of either cowardice, laziness, or the lack of finding the one savior you're looking for. Who can do the job. It's not who's perfect. It's who can do the job and carry out the duties faithfully.
a lot of fear involved in a lot of decision making that people do. They're afraid that people will disapprove, that somebody will know that they voted for somebody that wasn't their little cult groups approval. And if you disagree, well, then you're voted off the island.
I'd love to see a few positions have the winner of the election be a write-in candidate of no confidence.
Oh, that would be funny.
It would send such a strong message. Even if that got a 10% vote of no confidence, think of how strong of a message that would send to the remaining people. Your voice can be held. Your voice can really be broadcast in a lot of different ways through voting.
There are ways to break the system that are actually very, very easy and would not require anybody to break any laws. But there is one thing that I've been pondering that could break this whole system, but I'm holding this close to the vest for right now. Can you guys talk for a minute? I'll be right back.
Sure.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, so, go for the minor parties. Look through them. See what options you have there. Find who best represents you, and even if it's no confidence, at least express your opinion. We have such a high percentage of people at this point that are just that have decided to just completely opt out of voting because they see it as pointless. And that is not right either. That's not a right action. It's not a morally justifiable action. At least you make your opinion known in some way.
Right, in some way being key. And this is where she was questioning a while ago about townships. I think the township levels are great because, again, you're going with a smaller level community where people are more likely to get to know each other. If you've been to a township board meeting or a school board meeting and you chat with people before and especially after, when you've gotten to know somebody by what they said in a comment, I did a lot of discussions with people after a board meeting. They're like, whoa, I was, they would react to whatever I said. They were sometimes impressed. Sometimes they had questions. And I might have a comment for them. Hey, I think that was great what you said. You weren't prepared like you said you wanted to be or like you hoped, but your point was really terrific. You get to encourage one another and encourage the involvement and the participation of the local level community. So even if you're not comfortable voting, you can tell it to their face when they get on the board if they get voted in, or you can tell the others in a public meeting what you think about what's going on in your community. Hey, I'm really disappointed to see that no one else had the courage to step up that I feel comfortable voting for. But since you're in that seat now, I'm going to make sure that you understand what I feel you should be doing and not doing. And I'm going to challenge you and hold you to that. Even if you can't vote for somebody that you feel comfortable with, you have the option of going and to them, whether privately or with a group of people privately or in a public meeting, and make it well known. And in my township, they didn't used to be recorded, but at some point they started video recording. There was a volunteer, and he eventually was elected. But that's great, because then even if you didn't go, you couldn't go for whatever reason, you can still get back and look at not only the minutes report, which is not going to tell you everything, but a recording of the meeting, and it will include the public comments, so you get to see what other people told them. What is their reaction then? Are they listening? Are they going to react appropriately? Or are they going to just continue to ignore people or do whatever they please? So there's a lot of other ways to become involved besides just a vote. And don't let them tell you, as they did with me, that you have a voice every 4 years in an election and that's it. Or you can come privately. No. In my township, we all took over a meeting one time, and not in an aggressive way, but in you need to listen to this because what you're doing is inappropriate way. And when we made our voice known, they stopped what they were doing because they realized the public had an interest in what they were doing and how. And if they were being deceptive, or we thought they were being deceptive, they were going to have to change their ways. It was a peaceful day, but we stepped outside of the public comment period. But because it was a small group of people in a township level and not a county, I don't even remember if there was a deputy there that day or not, but there was no such pressure against the public. And we were able to have a meeting of the minds in a peaceful way because we were, at least in part, because we were a small group of people. Whereas at a county meeting, you're going to have a lot more voices if people are doing what they're supposed to be and showing up anyway.
So I'm going to go to the chat here and read some comments. Facebook wouldn't let me post Donna's show. Had to copy paste Facebook as commies. COVID gave them an inch, so they take a mile. We need to remove 75% of government and get this clown show under control. Remove all NGOs and nonprofits funding. I kind of agree with that. I think the NGOs have like broken trust with us, and it's like why are we giving protected status? And a nonprofit is not a not-for-profit. They just have to spend all the money so it doesn't show up on the book. So it's highly misleading. Jason, they're using the Homeless Act more like abusing it for illegal aliens. Whitler's new newcomers program is a scam. Michigan has juveniles and senior facilities getting beaten up and injured, and they won't pass House bills in Lansing to stop it from going on. Jamie Thompson and Nikki Snyder, HB Rhinos and Dems shut. I don't understand. Shut them down, part 2. Okay. It's beyond the gay issue. It's more for mapping and to lower age of sexual consent so they can groom kids and blame them so they can get away with raping kids. Pedo laws they want. Well, and let's look at that because, look at how many people are getting picked up. They want to have us focus on one group of people. And it's like they've been focusing on the homosexual and trying to pin this all on them. But I'm sorry, look at all the teachers that are sleeping with kids right now that are getting caught in the back seats of cars and that kind of thing. They're not really pointing out pedophilia is the problem. It is pedophilia, and that is pure evil, and it can't be overlooked. But you're right about the fact that it's about lowering the age of consent, because these people in office who are by and large, the majority of them are involved in pedophilia, or they've been blackmailed and set up with a kid or something like that and taped. That's what they were doing in China and Epstein Island.
So I got a theory on that.
Them. Yeah, go ahead.
So here's a theory, is that a lot of these people are actually pushing for decriminalizing things that they are being blackmailed for, and that it's about trying to get out of their blackmail prison that they've created for themselves, because they see no other way out other than making it acceptable enough to thwart the blackmailers.
Whether by threat or coercion. I mean, what happens? And I've been told this, that a lot of people's kids get kidnapped. so that they'll literally kidnap the kids of the people that are in office and hold these kids and make the moms and dads jump one way or the other. That is a real thing in our government right now. Literally, it's the same thing that they do with the Chinese that come over here. They'll let the students or whatever come over here, but they say you make one wrong move and we kill grandma. Well, this is what's happening. It's organized crime. It's despicable. And anyone that's taken part in this needs to be eliminated permanently. So anyhow, let's look at the school system setting the stage for temptation, and teach the school and school boards have immunity. But President Trump has no immunity. It's all a hoax. Michigan needs to wake up. Agreed. Gosh, these dictator, totalitarian maladministration of Michigan Whitmer regime needs to be in jail 100 times over. Oh, I would say a higher punishment than putting in. Why would we fund their sorry butts in jail to sit there three free meals a day with TV? I don't see a point to it. They knew what they were doing. And these are egregious crimes. Sheets or something he's suing. Anyhow, yes, yes, it took 1 hour Sunday to get background checked at Rural King and Heartland for firearm crazy on file folks. It's so discriminating and racist to get a background check when we have Second Amendment and the Constitution clown world. That's true. We shouldn't have background checks. Kelly Marie Bradley, aka Nancy Drew, does lives of DC almost every day. Donna, I think that was when he went there for his golf game. There was something going on where they did spray a wall or something. I don't know, but there was nothing there. There was no evidence of it. And he said that it was full of graffiti right after I'd been there. All the graffiti pictures came out before that. So where's the disconnect?
Yeah, there's a time gap between those two events.
There's a time gap. So this was past the graffiti. And he was saying, it's horrible what's happened to DC. There's graffiti everywhere and it's a trash pit. And I'm like, no, it's not. I would take my family there in a heartbeat and feel very, very safe. I felt it was a very safe city. And you think they don't have surveillance over every inch of this place? They could pick a zit off of somebody's nose at like 2,000 feet, probably a mile. Are you kidding me? Everybody there has been facial recognition. They know who you are. They know 3 jumps from you. No ways. Detroit West Side has had a child being raped on a block that there had 117 pedos on it this week. Yeah. So everybody's focused on these groups instead of what's the base problem. It's a distraction, but the distraction goes in that there's so many operatives that have infiltrated all of these groups, and they're being paid to set up an enemy for everyone to fixate on. And instead of saying the people that are doing this are political operatives, it's a total distraction shell game. I rest my case.
Yeah, you'll have to go back and look at the date. I think you were thinking about that when it happened, that the graffiti, that event was already cleaned up when you went there, and he made that comment.
Whether it was even real. I don't even know if it was real. If you look at a lot of the pictures, right. And a lot of my friends did like forensic, forensic on the pictures, and they said it was all fake. So I have to tend to believe that there was no truth to any of it.
Well, then that begs the question: what was the intention of putting that together? That's where I'm always. Yeah, that's where I'm always looking. If something doesn't make sense, then why was it created, and why was it made into a narrative? Why is it put out when it's put out? Why is it put out? By whom it is put out? Like Bill Mayer. Why is he now all of a sudden saying, outing some pedophilia red pills? What's going on with him?
Yeah,
and why is that relevant? While we ask the question, why is it relevant? Was he named on an Epstein interrogation? So when we see some, like, right now, one of the big questions is Johnson, Speaker Johnson. So who is he really? What is actually going on there? What is the purpose? Does it serve us well in the long run that he is being questioned because of the statements that he's making? When he said, I was right, or I am right by doing what I'm doing the other day, I thought he may be totally spot on about that. He may be entirely accurate that what he is doing is exactly what he's supposed to be doing. Like I've said about Mike Pence, there might be a whole lot of wrongdoing in Mike Pence's life history and political history, but on January 6th, did he do exactly what he was supposed to do? Yes. And was it of his own accord? Or was he made to do it by good guys?
Yes and no. He got $22 million from DeVos the day after she resigned. She resigned January 7 and paid off Pence at $22 million from what's been brought forward that's been talked about out there. So,
but again, what does that tell you? Is he still playing a role while that information is coming out? Johnson, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy playing a bad guy? Does he help the country? And I think the answer is yes, because it's really ticking people off, this thing about the funding of other countries and not our own border. We need that wake-up call. If we're going to get people, like Ralph was saying, people need to get involved. How are we going to get people involved if they're putting all their faith in one guy? Like, he runs the show in Congress? Is that how this is supposed to work? No. Who are the other legislators who are making these votes?
Mm-hmm.
There's 200 something of them. So it's not one guy that's in control of everything. It's just like the leader of a party. Is she the star of the show, or is it the delegates of the party?
Well, one honest
put all your faith in one.
Go ahead, sorry. One honest governor could have turned this nation around, because the office itself does have the ability to remove all but the legislature of who is involved, including the unelected positions. And that's why I won't concede, because we're going to write this thing and we are going to turn it around at some point in time when all the rocks get turned over. And when it does, that office itself can, if we have the right person, write it, and it's going to be fast.
Interesting.
Do you know that?
I've heard some of the capabilities and some of the ideas there, and there's definitely quite a bit more latitude there than what people realize.
Mm-hmm. That's why they had to have Dixon run, who was the designated loser by DeVos's. That was a DeVos move. And one of the oligarch families. We need to keep our eyes on that. Who is really running this? Who's paying for our elections? It's the 22 oligarch families in Michigan. That's who's paying off the election, and it's all pay to play, all of it. So follow the money is never more appropriate. So any words you guys want to go? Let's go to prayers. It's 11:30 right now. So I love being on with you guys, because I'll be gone here for about a week, and I might do some remote broadcast from where I'm going, which could be really interesting. So I don't know if it's going to be regular times or when I'm going to do it, or if I'm going to record and then pop the channel on while I'm there. But I'm planning on doing some recording, which should be really fun. So, but it's a Constitution Party National Nominating Convention, and I do believe, though I absolutely support President Trump, because he that office was compromised. It was an attack on the United States of America. He was deprived his rights. The office of the president was commandeered. We do not know who won because everything was completely and utterly a failure. We can assume that with pretty good evidence that President Trump won, and I do believe he won by 1 million votes. If it had actually been, that's my belief that he won by 1 million votes minimally, because they manipulated things so much. But I do believe that everyone needs to have their voice heard, whether they're in the media or not. I believe that everyone needs their voices heard, but I've made no bones about it that we absolutely have got to address the crime committed in 2020 and 2022. We can't go forward. So that's my sticking point right there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what comes out of the nominating convention, because the debate / forum was pretty interesting to watch, and there were, in my opinion, there were some standout answers from that were really good.
Yes, and there were some really good answers, and I just want to thank everybody who was willing to step forward and give it their best shot. That's really an important thing. I was thinking about doing another forum the way it should be run, but I kind of ran out of time, so I might do it. I actually might do it during the nominating convention. When I've got some downtime, and ask all the candidates to come in and ask them some questions. If anybody has any questions they want asked of those candidates on the Constitution Party, please forward them on to me. You can either forward it through the chat here, or you can text me, and that's 616-430-4410, 616-430-4410. I prefer texts because I'd like to see your questions in a text format, so it helps me be able to arrange them and ask the candidates, and then we'll see what happens. I think this could be really fun. So any last words here, Karen, and then I'm going to go for prayer.
Oh, I think it's great that you're doing that, even if people already know where they, at least where they think they're going to vote. Learning more through this process and observing the process that you're going to take everyone through, or that the Taxpayers Party is going to take everybody through, is great, because I think everybody should pay attention to that. They will learn another way of doing things from the GOP way of doing things, the uniparty way of doing things. So even if you don't think that you want to vote for a Constitution Party candidate, why don't you give it an open ear anyway? And maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll find a candidate that you really are interested in. And maybe some of those candidates will run for a different office later on, and you'll recognize them from this one. So there's a lot of benefits to participating. I guess that's the key word for the day: participate.
Participate. Uphold your civic duty and get involved. We have to do that and care about the people around us, care about the people who are representing us, and instruct them. Take time to get to know them, instruct them a little bit. So, okay, well, let's say prayers here, guys. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for this wonderful day that you've set before us, and thank you for Jeff and Jason and Aaron and Ralph and Karen and all the wonderful, beautiful people out there that are listening. Let them know how much you love them. It's not getting through to people, and I don't understand why this is not getting through, but clearly it isn't. So I think we're coming to you today asking you for a little help. Help people to hear your voice, to reach out to you and know how much you love them and what you sacrificed in order to have that relationship with you. We are just so grateful for everything you've done for us. It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful time to be alive. I wouldn't have missed a minute of this. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way. We want to be here working for your goals, not our own. Our own goals are kind of childish and simple-minded. We're doing the best we can here, okay? So, but we really want to lay our lives down and the things that we have in our minds, the preconceived notions and such, and we want to turn to you in all things. Please lead us, continue to lead us, help us to hear you. And it is our will that we do what it is that you have set before us, that we keep focused on that, no matter how things are. In good times and in bad times, our eyes are on you, and we are grateful, so grateful for this. Everything you've created here is so beautiful, and we love the flowers that are emerging. We love our pets. We love our friends and our families, and even those people that have done things to offend us. We love them too, and we're learning to love people like you do. And we ask that you help us to see the world through the lens of your eyes and lay down all offense, forgive people, and very much just whatever it takes and whatever you ask us to do, we're willing to do it. We love you. You're amazing. We're thankful for the food that you give us this day and for the weekend ahead of us, or the week ahead of us. Please give us all travel mercies as we're traveling. Help people have open minds and listen to things, not to look for a savior, because we already have one. We have you, and we're so thankful. We love you. You're a great friend to us, and we just really can't say thank you enough. In the name of Jesus Christ, our precious Lord and Savior, we pray. Amen. So there you go, guys. So it's that time of the show. Boys and girls, go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States. So, and I would like to have a discussion with President Trump. If you're out there, President Trump, I want to have a discussion with you about this and many other things too. So
many other things.
You know, starting with a graffiti.
It's going to be a long discussion.
It's going to be a long discussion. That's right. You know, and so I'd love to have that discussion. And I'm not looking for a king. I'm looking for a friend that wants to take this nation back. And so that's how I view it. And I'm sticking with it. So anyhow, God bless you all. God bless America. And God bless all those whom you love. God bless America. Have a great week. I will try to flip the cameras on, but it's going to be a little bit up and down. It's a little nerfy. Okay. So, but you can watch the Telegram channel. It's at Brandenburg, the number 4 MI. I do all the posting and I answer all the comments there. Nobody else does it. I do it. Unless there's a fake on there. There's a fake that keeps asking people to the chat. I do not ask people to join a chat. Okay. I don't ask for it. If somebody comes on looking for pushing a chat, off with their heads. Okay. It's a bot or it's something else like that, because I don't do that. I do not come on and DM people and say, how are you doing today? Does that even sound like me to come on thing and say something like that randomly? So how are you today? Pretty extra sure that's not the tone of my voice. Okay. Just want to say. So though I care, I wouldn't come on and say something like that. It doesn't work that way. And I also put the phone number on for confirmation to see if it was in fact me. So you can even text me a picture of the imposter and we will call them out. So have a great day, and we'll be talking to you later. Bye.